But believe it or not, Australia has done phenomenal through this whole mess that we've been in. Natalie Pace is with us right now, CEO and founder of the Women's Investment Network. Before we start talking about the land down under, what is the Women's Investment Network?
Well, it's a group of individual investors who like to share wisdom. So I report on the markets daily and have been for the last 12 years. And we get a lot of people reporting to us as well. So it's kind of a Main Street movement.
Is it like an investment club kind of thing?
No, it's like media.
Cool. Yeah. There's a lot of women. Is it all women?
No, actually 40% of my subscribers are men, but that's because I've been named the #1 stock picker in the past. So guys like performance.
Yes, they do, and they go anywhere for it. And so why have you decided on Australia?
I've decided on Australia for a number of reasons. The first reason is that you can get a great yield. So they have the highest bond yields in the world. You could even open a savings account and get 6%. That's how wonderful it is.
Can I open a savings account from here?
It's very difficult to do. You'd have to have some presence there in terms of business or a residence. However, what I would like to say is that PIMCO is making it very easy for you to invest there. They have a new bond fund. Wisdom Tree has a bond fund as well, as does iShares.
Now, interesting that you're talking about their debt. So owning their debt and not their stocks.
Yeah, I think that's just a very easy way. But actually, the iShares is a stock portfolio, and that's a wonderful one. Yeah. So
the iShares MSCI Australia Index Fund. Yeah. That's the Morgan Stanley Australia Index. Ticker is EWA. So basically, you're saying either way, invest in Australia.
I would say, yeah, and both. And I think on the safe side of your portfolio, if you want to get a little diversified and be safe and have international, what country can be better? AAA credit rating, the lowest debt to GDP really in the world. I mean, it's about 33%.
Which is crazy considering we've been talking about like Greece being at 120% debt to GDP.
Absolutely.
And you're saying that Australia is at 30?
33%.
33%.
That's one of the lowest in the world.
That's pretty darn impressive, actually.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Greece is at, actually, I thought maybe it was 140% at one point. But nevertheless, so you have, they know how to handle their financial statements, basically. They trade with China, which is really key. And I think people miss that. They're a big, big consumer and exporter to China.
They are one of the largest commodities exporters in the world. Natural resources, I mean, everybody is interested in natural resources. They know that these emerging economies like China and India as well, they need all they can get. In fact, what's interesting about Australia is China has been so present there that they've had to stop all of the acquisitions. So the stocks in Australia have done extremely well as well.
So what about inflation and all that? They don't have that worry either,
no,
do they?
Not yet. It hasn't really kicked in for them yet. So they've been doing exceedingly well on all fronts.
And their banking system, their Australian banking system, has held up very well.
Yep.
As in particular, much like Canada, I think.
Yes.
They have stricter rules, tougher standards, and they adhere to them, unlike, well, some of us.
Well, they were not as exposed to the toxic assets. So, you can look in a lot of different places. Milken Institute ranked Canada, Australia 1 and 2. So these are great. I mean, it's really hard to find a play that's not right about Australia right now.
Unemployment rate of 5.2% is actually pretty impressive as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a much smaller country, but they do a lot of things right. I mean, they have tort reform that's really great there. It is emerging. They're not yet dealing with all the pension issues that we're dealing with. So, and again, it's the #3. In fact, they consider Australia to be even more free than the U.S. in terms of capital markets.
That's interesting, though. They're young, so they haven't dealt with all the
and they have
old folk stuff that we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what we're dealing with, is that we have a lot of promises that were made that aren't really capable of being kept. And, we kind of have to cycle through that. I mean, I'm very pro-American. I love America, but you may as well get a little bit diversified and a little bit safe, and here's a great way to do it.
What percentage, then, would you recommend
of
your portfolio?
I would say overweight at least 10% additional safe. You know how you always want to keep a percent equal to your age safe? And I allocate that 10% or more to Australia.
Really?
Yeah.